We have new NBA champions. Giannis put in a monster performance in Game 6. He scored 50 points, and I'll say it again 50 points in a closeout game. And I think what's more incredible than the 50 points that he scored 17 free throws out of the 19 attempts as the Milwaukee Bucks won the first title in
Oh,
50
they won?
years.
Hey, that's great.
all about Game 6 in today's episode. The Milwaukee Bucks finally ended this season 105 to 97 in a closeout game against the Phoenix Suns. Giannis with 50 points, 13 rebounds, 5 blocks, 17 out of 19 from the free throw line. This is one of the most incredible finals performance there ever was and there ever will be. This team, look at this whole team, right? There's a two-time MVP, one-time Defensive Player of the Year, always doubted whether he could do it on the biggest stage of them all. A coach who always did well in the regular season, never really, always faltered in the playoffs. A second guy who was always doubted if he could be the second guy on a championship winning team. A new acquisition for whom the franchise traded their entire future, and he was not really coming to the party, not really great on the offensive end. He ended up with plus 157 during the series. On the defensive end, he was a great guy. Every one of those can shut up now because Milwaukee Bucks have gone and won the title, the first title in 50 years, like I said, and all of these guys came to the party. Giannis, every game he had a phenomenal performance. He had a highlight reel in every game. Middleton, the closer in every game. Jrue Holiday was phenomenal in defense. Chris Paul did not know what hit him. And no matter how much we criticize the coach, I think he was really good after making those not in-game adjustments, but from game to game, he knew how to close out the Suns and destroy them and didn't allow them to win the way they won in the first two games. So all of them came to the party. I think this was one of the best ends to a season, I would say, in a long, long time.
I love it. It's like the basketball I grew up on. Some of the worst three shooting you'll ever see in your life in this Game 6. Both teams get this. They combined for 12 out of 52 threes.
Wow.
They were almost equally bad. Bucks were slightly worse off. I think 6 of 27 and 6 of 25, but just nothing separating. There was just
Steph Curry scored 12 like multiple times this season in a game alone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all of those things. It's nerves. It's better defense. It's more stifling matchups and zones and stuff like that. But this was a well contested match. I thought the Bucks ran away with it in the first half. It is kind of the flip of
Game 5.
What happened in Game 5? Yeah. So Bucks got off to a blitz, very unlike the Phoenix Suns, to go down in the first quarter like that big. And then they kind of fought back. Second half, Bucks weren't really feeling it. And Giannis literally had to dig in deep and put a few points on the board, but that was all they got in the second quarter. And then came the third, and slowly it became a match. Now it's getting tight. Now every point is feisty. Now Bobby Portis is getting in Chris Paul's way, and that's what hit him. Chris Paul is going to the ref to come. It's those little things, right? Bobby Portis just stands in Chris Paul's way, doesn't let him go to the ref to complain about a foul call. Paul gets incensed, etc., etc. And Bobby Portis is just smirking. You get an edge. You can't deny. You get an edge in moments like these when you can get under the skin of the other guy. I mean, this is Pat Beverly's entire career, but it's a small facet of Bobby Portis's game. And he kind of riled him up. But cometh the hour, cometh the man. Mr. Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's going to be the focal point of most of this show. We almost become fanboys now at this stage after having written him off, at least in a playoff sense. I think we've all been victimized by a few influential voices that have convinced us that shooting is everything. And we were all convinced. We were all convinced because there wasn't proof of concept, not since Shaq. And Shaq is the exception to the rule. Somebody like that coming along, sure, shooting isn't everything. But here's Giannis. And just to know how good he is, it really took a Kareem and then a Giannis to bring 2 chips in 50 years to Milwaukee. That's a barometer. We can read out all of the stats. He's the only player not named Michael Jordan to have multiple MVPs, a Finals MVP, DPOY, something like that. One of 3, including MJ and Hakeem, to have MVP, DPOY, Finals MVP. And I think he's the only guy in the history of basketball to win Most Improved Player, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and Finals MVP at some point or the other.
Yeah.
Nobody's had that. None of the other guys had to win Most Improved Player. That's what makes this story so much more special. Giannis didn't hack his way to success. We'll talk about his performance, but he didn't hack his way to success. That's what he was saying post game. He said, there's more ways than one to win a chip, but I did it the hard way. I did my way. Little Sinatra from the Greek Freak, and that's class. That's class. Lillard would be fuming. He's been saying this for 10 years that he wants to stay there and build a team. It doesn't happen for two reasons. A, I think the Bucks organization finally pulled their shit together. B, it really does take a Giannis to do this. Lillard, all said and done, does have a height disadvantage. Him and Steph Curry, it's that much harder to be the man on a chip-winning team with that disadvantage, as Allen Iverson found out, as Chris Paul found out. It does count against you. It's the odds are that much higher stacked against you. So Giannis comes in. What were you telling his height was when he got drafted? 6'7".
I think he was 6'7" or less than 6'8" when he got drafted. He just grew like 4 inches.
Yeah, skinny. He looked like minus the height, of course. He looked just like a teenage high schooler.
True.
And no muscle whatsoever. Just
put on
he's
40
fit.
pounds since
he was fit, but 48 or something. Then just became this monster. He became the Greek Freak. He became this unguardable player. He wasn't rookie of the year. He wasn't even in the all rookie first team. He was in the all rookie second team. The all rookie second team is like, whatever, man. Who cares? So he was there. Then came back. Most improved player. Now everyone's talking about him. He's in the All-Star game. Then comes back next season. Even better. Now he's dunking on everyone for fun. He's the show at the All-Star game. Night full of the biggest stars in the league. He's the man to watch. Make Steph Curry sleep on the floor to avoid getting dunked on. All of that good stuff. Wins an MVP. People are still hating. All he does is he's tall. He just runs and dunks, says James Harden. Okay, he has a chip, James Harden. And he didn't have to throw tantrums in strip clubs and go join a super team to do it. He built his own team. Something that you had all the chances in the world to do at Houston.
Right.
It's not. I'm not oversimplifying it. I'm just saying the amount of irrational hate that Giannis got was unreal. To the point where if he was American, do you think he would have gotten the same level of hate? I don't think so. So he goes through all this, wins that MVP, they're still hating. Wins another MVP, they're still hating. They're saying, nah, he's just a regular season monster. And it's the bane of the sports media, right? Nobody has an opinion anymore. And I get the irony of us saying this, but nobody has an opinion anymore. Everyone listens to, I talk to anyone these days, I can tell exactly which podcast and which host they're quoting when they're saying this. I can tell you this guy said this, it's what Chris Broussard said on some Fox show or whatever, Colin Cowherd, The Herd. It's sad. So we all kind of fell into this trap. But I've been Giannis's biggest fan for a while. Even I didn't think he could do this though. I love watching him play, but I didn't think this would be possible. Back-to-back MVPs, still hating. Took a 2-1 lead, dropped it. So he knows what that feels like. He's paid his dues. There's nothing they haven't experienced. Bounced out in the first round thrice. Then bounced out in the conference finals after leading 2-0 against the Raptors when Kawhi took over. And that was when Giannis didn't have as much versatility in his offensive arsenal.
Right.
So he looked limited. It looked like it was a one-trick pony, and there is a way. It's a tough way, but there is a way to stop him. A thought and a belief that was reinforced by the Miami Heat last year. To the point where how many episodes did I not say they have the Giannis stopper formula? They have it, Toronto have it, Boston has it. There's no formula now. There's no stopping this guy. The Phoenix Suns lost the finals because they just could not defend Giannis. They had no answer for him. He came down from the halfway line. He took off from the top of the key. He took off from the baseline, did 360s, layups, Euro step, dunk, alley-oops, put-back dunks, fade-away mid-range shots. He did it all. And to top it all off, just that last bit of criticism that remained, something that Chris Paul alluded to as to why he fouled Giannis. Because he said he expected him to miss the shot. Hell, Giannis would have expected to miss that shot. Now, he got the rebound, and that's amazing because he's that tall, but we all expected him to miss that shot. Well, 17 of 19 in a closeout game, 50-point night, 5 blocks. I think he had like 9 blocks. 4 of them came just after the whistle or whatever, so they didn't count.
Yeah. 2 of them were goaltending. I think 2 of them, someone else was called for a foul. But there was no way that he was letting the ball go in the basket whenever possible, right? He was just swatting it away like mosquitoes because, no, I'm here to win. And it is great that he got 17 of those 19 in a closeout game because that was the one criticism that if anyone had on him, it was ironical because Chris Paul missed a free throw, didn't he? When Bobby Portis got called a technical, it was funny to see that because Bobby Portis got called a technical, and then Chris Paul went to the line, and then he missed the free throw. It was kind of justice served back to Chris Paul. Giannis, though, I mean, this is a great story for Milwaukee, isn't it? Going the old school way of drafting a unknown person, unknown guy from Greece, drafting Chris Middleton in the second round, and sticking with them for all these years, seeing all those first round playoff exits,
G League and everything.
G League, they've done this the proper way that you're supposed to win a championship. I mean, I'm not saying that if you go to Brooklyn and put 3 superstars together, you will win. That used to be
a more romantic way of winning a championship.
It's nice to see that they had one trade, one piece missing, and they got in Jrue Holiday. They drafted they bet their entire future on Jrue Holiday turning up, and he did. This is great for the small market teams. Do you think this will kind of spark a change? Say teams like Minnesota, will they be able to do this? Teams like Detroit, whom nobody really fancies anymore, or is it always going to be the California teams, the Lakers, the Warriors, or the New York teams, Brooklyn, New York? Are all the stars going to go there? Because even Phoenix, for that matter, Devin Booker, now he can attract people to come and play alongside him, right? He did that with Chris Paul, and he can do that, continue doing that in the future. He showed this in the finals itself with multiple 40-point performances that he's a star, and a few pieces around him, he can be a bigger star.
Yeah, what did he do in Game 6? I'm kidding. First finals, let's not be harsh. I think it's amazing that at this stage of his career, he's already had NBA finals experience. That's
he was leading the team because Chris Paul has kind of disappeared.
For sure. Right? For sure. And I think the entire Sun squad disappeared last couple of games, though they ran the Bucks close. I think when moments that it really mattered, if anything, Booker hit a few clutch shots. That 3 in Game 5 it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
That was as fast a catch and shoot as anyone could have done, and a fadeaway on top of it. And he hit a clutch 3 in this game also to bring the score close. So, look, I think, I don't think this is going to change anything, paradigm shift, because look at the cause and effect linkage here. Why don't people, if the reason people don't come to small market teams is because they can't win, that should have changed when LeBron won with Cleveland. Because he brought a bunch of people there. He recruited half the earth to come play for him, and he won in Cleveland. Should have changed, didn't change. Should have changed with Kawhi in Toronto. Then should have changed with Billups and Ben Wallace and Rashid and all those guys in Detroit. Didn't change. Nothing changed. I don't think that's why people don't come to small markets. I think people forget that at the end of the day, these guys are working professionals. It's a job. Peel away all the glamour and the Instagram and the strip clubs and lemon pepper Lou, and what you have left is it's a job. It's a very high paying job, but it's a job. It's a job where you could make this much, but you could also make this much more. How much do you want to make? It's also a job where they're monetizing a perishable commodity, their fitness, their physique. It's not going to last forever. There's a finite time window in which you can rake in the moolah. Now, there are 2 ways of looking at this. If you're, say, I don't know, like a Brook Lopez, that window ends. That window ends for you, and after a point, you're not going to be making this much money. So this is what you're going to be earning for a lifetime. You will invest this, you will do whatever with this money, but this is the cash flow that's coming in right now. If you're a LeBron, you're a Steph. So I'm saying it's easy to get the likes of Brook Lopez, these guys, if you pay them. Teams like Atlanta, teams like Phoenix, you offer a competitive payday, and there will be players that will be attracted to come. But if you want the LeBrons and the Steph Currys and etc. of the world, they're going to go beyond basketball. A superstar of that caliber with charisma will go beyond basketball. There's a brand to be built. There's money to be made for a lifetime, even after they retire. It's what LeBron's doing. It's what Steph's doing. And that's the stature of superstar that doesn't care about taxes. So they're not wooed by Texas or wherever else there's the state tax is lax because they can afford to pay it. Their gains from going to a market like the Bay Area or LA, access to capital, access to investors and business partners and all of that, those gains are a lot higher than what they lose by paying that much more in taxes. So the reason people don't come to small market teams, a few of the reasons at least that players themselves have quoted in the past. If it's not a warm weather city, that's a big Milwaukee's not. It's really not. Minnesota is not. That's why nobody goes up north.
Well, Phoenix is warm, but it's too warm, I guess. It's a desert.
I think they live with that. I honestly think they live with that. But which is why I say a San Antonio or a Dallas is a little bit easier to settle
True.
for than these cities. That's one. Two is the tax issue. But if you're thinking about tax, you're not really thinking about brand. Because if you're thinking about brand, then it's tough to beat the ecosystem that already exists and has for decades in a New York or a Brooklyn or an LA or even the Bay Area.
Yep.
Seattle for that matter. So I think that ultimately decides. It's what the players want to do with their earnings, their career, and what they want their legacy to be. There will be some players for whom chip is everything. They'll move to a small market if they have a competent team. But for everyone else who's building a brand, who's trying to make money, who's trying to save money, and have a good lifestyle, Bombay the city, taxes maybe, access to further wealth making opportunities, I think these weigh a lot higher. So I don't think success was a factor. So this success isn't really going to take away any of those inhibitions. I don't think this is going to be a miracle change.
We've got to talk about Phoenix a bit because yes, they lost, but this was kind of a dream run for them, wasn't it? I mean, it all started with that 8-0 run in the bubble where nobody saw that coming, and they almost made the playoffs. And then adding one piece, that is the Chris Paul piece to this team, and wow, you made the finals. You knocked out
Hey,
the
Crowder
defending
too. I thought he
champion.
was pretty nifty for them.
Who?
Crowder. I thought he was pretty
Crowder.
nifty.
Yeah, they got the. Crowder did say this. I think I heard or I read it somewhere where Crowder said that
after the finals,
when he was playing in the NBA Finals, Chris Paul and Booker had already messaged him that they wanted him in Phoenix, and that kind of made up his mind to move to Phoenix. So yeah, that was a good addition of Chris Paul and Crowder. And well, they knocked out the defending champions. They knocked out the runners-up from the Western Conference Finals last year, and they knocked out the favorites this year, the Clippers. All three of them, and then losing to Milwaukee Bucks in 6, they gave them a close run. I think this is a good season for them. And you think this is something that they can repeat? Chris Paul has a player option on his contract. Is he going to take that? I mean, should it be a formality, or will the need to win a chip now see him going for greener pastures, move with LeBron James, and then it's easier to win a chip there?
Yeah, maybe. But would the Lakers really want it? One more aging guy with the risks that come with it. And for Chris Paul, I think the best thing to do would be to run it back. Just get better, incremental improvements, right? But unpopular opinion, I think that this season's Miami Heat. I don't think they're going to be anything special next year. I really believe this because I think the West is going to be too strong next year.
Right.
I think there's an element of luck. I'm not taking away from whatever the Suns have achieved. I'm not one of those who says because of injuries they were where they are. Injuries played a role, but injuries are there every year. Right. And even if you're a lucky champion, you're a champion. It doesn't matter. Lucky champion, unlucky, whatever. You're a champion, you're a runner-up, you're a runner-up. So I'm not taking anything away. Now I'm only talking about how scalable their model is, how they can run it back again and again. And I'm saying in the algorithm of Phoenix's success this season, a big weightage went to the variable of luck. And by luck, I mean other teams being weakened and their stance being not very great. Every team has that as a variable. It's just the weightage was that much higher for Phoenix this season because they got it at every stage. Unlike, say, the Bucks, who it happened with the Nets in round 2, but round 1 they just demolished. I don't even remember who they beat. Was it the Wizards?
Miami.
Well, there you go. They just swept
the Heat.
Yeah, it's such an inconsequential series. They swept the Heat. Nets, okay, injuries, yes. Game 7 kind of came through. Hawks, if anything, the Bucks had the injury.
Yep.
Giannis was out and they had to close that series out. So full credit to them. And then the finals was clean. So with the Suns, why I don't think... I think to answer the question, Chris Paul should run it back. Stay there because that's the best way to... rather than find a new place now and try and figure it out. Unless the Clippers want him back. But Clippers without Kawhi, what's the point?
Right.
It's not an immediate chip team. Who else is there really that needs a point guard that's on the precipice of winning it? Maybe Philadelphia, if they move on Ben Simmons. Maybe that's the only other destination that I can really think of. Maybe Boston. If they move Kemba, I think that's a great spot to go to. So there are options, but I think he should run it back. But can the franchise run it back? I don't think so. I think they got Clippers were tanking. Mavs were inconsistent. Injuries throughout the regular season. Clippers were tanking to get a lower seed. I don't mean tanking all the way. The Lakers were injured like most of the year. They didn't have their big two play, or at least one of them not play. And so they got a high seed. They go into the playoffs. Lakers were just a shell of themselves. Every second game, somebody or the AD was out for a bunch of games. LeBron was playing on one leg. It was just a joke of a team.
Yes.
Then they get to the Nuggets. Now the Nuggets don't have Murray. They have Jokic, who's exhausted from playing every game. Maybe you should think about not playing every game next season. How about that, huh? Like, it's great, but the rest is good for an athlete, as young as he is. And then they got past them. And then they had the Kawhi injury in the finals. That's a gut punch to the Clippers.
Yep.
Not to mention, and we spoke about this before the finals began, Ayton never really faced a test until that finals. We were riding high on the Ayton wave. We were all surfing it. Ayton did this and that, but he really didn't. And he has room to grow. He's a great player, but I'm saying at the highest level, he played against AD, got him in game 1. Credit to him. AD slept. That's not Ayton's fault. Credit to him.
Yep.
Game 2 and 3, AD was fit. He demolished Ayton. Those 2 games were just the Anthony Davis games. Nobody else needed to do anything. It was game over.
Yep.
And then AD got injured. So he didn't really have who's he? Montrezl Harrell, seriously. Then you go to the next round. It's Jokic, but it's not really. Jokic drifts to so many spots that there are multiple people guarding him.
So he's not really a traditional center.
Yeah. And when Jokic did come to the post, though, he was scoring with ease on Ayton.
Yep.
So that
Jokic averaged 30 plus in that series.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then there's the Clippers. Are you serious, Zubac?
Clippers went small ball. They had Marcus Morris playing with the center, and they rotated quite a bit. Yeah,
and we talked about this. He wasn't tested till the finals, and we were saying there is no way he holds up against Giannis. That matchup is a sure shot, done deal. Now the rest of the finals is how the other matchups fare up, the perimeter battles.
Yeah, so you think Chris Paul's legacy is going to be one of those lists where we make the top 10 greatest players to never win a title? You'll have Damian Lillard on there, James Harden probably, Russell Westbrook, Charles
Harden
Barkley.
Still got a shot, right? I think he's
true. He's in one of the strongest teams, and probably they'll start favorites in the seasons.
Yeah, they are the favorites. Bookies wise, they then. It's surprising though. Nobody takes Milwaukee seriously even now. The Nets are the favorites. Okay, we get it. Lakers are the second. For what exactly? We don't know what level of fitness they'll come back in. We don't know what they'll add in the postseason. It's a little premature, right? At least put Bucks second, if not. Yeah.
True.
Yep.
So he's going to be on that. But this is the closest that any of those list members have gotten to reaching a title, right? 2-0 up in the finals.
No. Yeah. I mean, sure. 2-0 up in the finals. Yes, I get that. But that list is incomplete without Allen Iverson, right? And it's almost the same. Similar height. I think the exact same height. Same position. A different skill set. But the list of all-time greats who haven't won a chip, Iverson's right up there on that list.
True.
And Iverson did the same thing. He went to the finals. And he... was it 4-1, I think. 4-1 it was. 4-1, and they lost to a dynamic duo of an unstoppable big man and just a beast at both ends of the floor, and a mid-range guard who finishes really well. It's not Giannis and Middleton. Stop getting seizures. I'm talking about Kobe and Shaq. It's perfectly okay to say this without saying Middleton is at Kobe's level.
True. The season was reminded me a lot about the Royal Rumble. Have you watched Royal Rumble as a kid?
Yeah.
It's like everyone was getting knocked out, right? First, Denver Nuggets, who I considered the Western Conference favorites when they got in that Aaron Gordon. Then Murray got injured and he was chucked out of the rope. Then Lakers slowly went down. AD and LeBron got kicked out. And then on the Eastern Conference, Kyrie went down. And then James Harden went down. And then Clippers, Kawhi went down. And Hawks, Trae Young went down. And Chris Paul slightly got injured. It was like he was hanging on to those ropes. And then he pulled himself back up and only to get clotheslined by Giannis.
One foot touches the ground and then he comes out.
Exactly. And he got clotheslined by Giannis at the end. So I think it was like that because so many injuries all around the league. It was a case of the last man standing, and the Milwaukee Bucks were the last men standing.
Yeah.
So it reminded me of that. Just to close out this episode and kind of look back at the season, what do you remember the most? As there are some amazing moments these playoffs, right? You had that Lillard crazy game where he took it to double
55.
overtime with 2 clutch shots.
Yeah.
You had that LeBron James swish against the Warriors in that play-in game, which was great.
Yep.
The KD game, his toe
shot
kind
clock
of
running down. Like, good shot.
well, it did go in, so it makes a highlight play. The KD game, I mean, he got that 49 points, an incredible game. And then even in the game 7, where his toe kind of determined that Milwaukee Bucks will be the ones going through and not the Nets.
Kudos to
that game. The Ben Simmons refusing to shoot, that insanity over there. Yes. The Clippers game 7 was the Mavs. That was crazy as well. So
I think Paul George deserves a shout out.
Paul George rising to the occasion, kind of redeeming himself to an extent.
Yes.
So which one of these were your favorite moments?
I'll probably go in reverse order because recency bias. But man, these last 2 games, Giannis, there's this this game alone, half those blocks blew my mind. Some of those finishes, you remember in the first half where it looked like he was shooting a 3, so Ayton kind of took the bait and then he went inside 360 layup off. So 2 things from Giannis, right? That all-time great block on Ayton. I have never seen an alley-oop being blocked at the glass. I have never seen it ever in any form. I have never seen an alley-oop being blocked at the glass. To do it in the fashion that he did, to push Booker away from his chosen path to the rim,
right?
To prevent Booker from even thinking about taking a shot. 2 great defensive plays. Then Booker lobs it to Ayton. To track back 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps before the ball gets to Ayton. Ayton's got the easiest dunk in the world and Giannis meets him 13 feet in the sky. Wow. That was one.
Yep.
I think the finish to game 5 was incredible. The steal, the presence of mind of Jrue Holiday to snatch it from Booker. It was so reminiscent of how Jordan got the steal on Malone. Weak side just comes and smacks the ball away and then goes and hits that iconic shot, right? It was reminiscent of that. It was a similar style. Grabs the ball away, fast break, Giannis screaming himself hoarse. Through the crowd, Jrue could hear nothing but Giannis, lobs it. And there's like 2 players in the world that can finish that move, and Giannis is one of them. Let's say 3. So these were memorable. I think Devin Booker made a bunch of clutch threes and also sometimes we oversimplify the game with 1 shot, but a bunch of hot streaks where he'd get 10 out of the 14 points and like go from a 4-point deficit to whatever 8-point lead, 10-point lead, whatever that was. I think Booker had some great moments. Chris Paul in the closeout game against the Clippers, that was one of the all-time great performances. That was amazing. What else do I remember? And it's been too many. Trae Young, I feel like Trae Young deserves a special mention.
I had actually put the Knicks to come over the Hawks in round 1, so that was a horrible prediction. And Trae Young really came through, not just beating the Knicks, but also beating the Sixers. I think that has to be remembered.
Okay, that I didn't see coming. I saw the Knicks losing to the Hawks. I was very clear about it. Sixers, not in a million years did I think Hawks would get past them. Trae Young just threw out. I love this guy. Because it gives you stories. Sports is fun with stories. Sports is fun with debates. Forget the game. This guy who not only thrives under pressure, Giannis thrives under pressure, but Trae invites it. He relishes it. He will rile the crowd up before they rile him up. Setting into motion this reinforcement loop, which for him is a positive reinforcement loop, apparently. And that whole that ice tray thing, that's going to catch on, man. That's like Dame time. It's going to catch on.
You had footballers imitate that celebration already during the Euros, right? So yeah, that's going to catch up.
Copa America, wasn't it Messi and some other Argentina player? They recreated the Giannis, Jrue Giannis dunk. Yeah, so that ice tray thing, that's marketing genius. It's going to catch on just like Dame time. Brands are going to milk the crap out of it. That ice tray thing, it's amazing. And so Trae Young gave us something to look forward to.
True.
And to close this off, I know there's a lot of stuff to talk about, right? Jokic, the MVP, and Steph showing us he is still that guy, and watch out when Clay comes back. Bunch of mini stories, including what there is happening in Minnesota and New Orleans. Like, does anyone have a clue what's going on in those franchises? But one big standout that will have a major role to play in the years to come is, I believe we are in the era of the Greek freak, but I believe he has some people for competition. These are his primary nemesis group. And in that group, I've mentioned a few of them, but it's important that we mention Luka Doncic. Half-assed team through most of the regular season, dragged them to the playoffs. With Porzingis, without Porzingis, sulking Porzingis, bulking Porzingis, nobody cares. Luka got it done. I say bulking with a punch of salt because he's not going to do that anytime soon. It's insane. Then the dude takes a little break, goes to Olympic qualifiers, drops a triple double again, takes his team to the Olympics. Watch out for him in the Olympics.
Yeah,
Luka
I'm
Doncic
looking
is
forward to
someone I'm
that.
looking
Yeah,
forward to. Yeah.
definitely. I think if Slovenia are going to play USA sometime in the later stages, I
Oh,
hope
that'd
that
be fun.
I'd really be looking forward to Luka Doncic torching his colleagues from the NBA.
Yeah,
That's
he'll
gonna
be
be
a
fun.
handful to defend. I don't know if the team can keep up.
Yeah, lots to watch out for. There's a draft coming up very soon. I think it's next week
Yeah,
around this time. Lots of players up there for grabs as well. So we'll keep our eyes open. We'll continue discussing everything related to in the world of NBA. But that's all for today, and I'll catch you soon.
Yes.